Hey, good morning, 8th grade remote learners. So it's Wednesday, September 16th, and I have lesson 2 ready here. A few different changes from the one that we did in person. So that's why it's labeled as remote here, but it's pretty much the same sort of content. We started off with a review of mean, median, and mode. And I gave you some examples of how to do that. So mean, again, is the average. You'll probably hear that a lot from me. So whenever I say average, what's actually, I might just give it to you without going through the process, but the process is you add up all the numbers, you find the sum, you take the sum, and then you divide by however many numbers there are. So here's an example here for you. Median is another one that will be used. And that's the one where you find the number in the middle, but first you have to put the numbers in order. And then mode is the number that occurs most frequently. So I would encourage you to practice these. I made the number, especially on A, pretty easy to use, so you don't necessarily need to break out a calculator for that, although you can if you need to. And so fill those in, and then if you're, I can give some feedback on those. All right, now we get into some new stuff. Something called a climograph. Let me give you a little bit more space here. A climograph is a type of graph, obviously, that's going to show you climate. So it's going to provide temperature and precipitation. What makes it a little bit tricky to read is that there's actually two y-axis. You can see over here is precipitation, and then over here is temperature. It's important that you understand what you're looking at. So precipitation, as you can see, is measured in bar graph. So in order to read this, I'm going to have to go over here, right? So for instance, in say the month of April, the precipitation is about 3.5 inches. And always think to yourself, does that seem logical, right? That in a month, the city of Philadelphia, which is not too far away from us, would get 3.5 inches. Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable, okay? But if you're asked a question about temperature, well, now you have to look at the line graph. And not only do you have to look at the line graph, but you have to look at the other y-axis over here, which shows temperature. So for instance, the average temperature in July, if you follow it across here, looks like it's just shy of about 80 degrees. All right, so let's call it 78. Again, does that make sense? Does it make sense that in a city in the Northeast, that the average temperature in July would be 78 degrees? Hopefully it does, right? That does make sense. So that is a climograph, not just telling you weather, but also telling you precipitation, but putting it all on the same graph, which makes it easy. But you just have to make sure that A, you're looking at the proper graph, whether it be the bar graph or the line graph, and secondly, that you're using the proper y-axis, right? So for instance, we had some people in class the other day who I might ask them, what was the temperature or what was the precipitation in December? And then they were telling me 35. Well, right, but that's because you're looking over here for precipitation, and then you get a number like, there was 36 inches of rain that month. Well, does that really make sense? I mean, there are some places in the world that might get that much rain, but not too many, and certainly not Philadelphia. All right, so what do I expect out of you? Well, here we have a few questions. So there's a couple questions for climograph A, and then one for climograph B, C, D, and E. And how do you answer those? Well, you keep scrolling down, and there you can see climograph A, and climograph B, and climograph C, and climograph D, and climograph E. All right. So I'll go over what the correct answers are for Friday's video, but I want you to answer those. Please make sure that you're looking at the proper climograph when it comes time to answer the questions, right? If you're answering a question for question number 2, but you're looking at climograph E, then the question might not necessarily make sense to you. Okay, so just make sure you're looking at the right one. I don't need long, complete answer responses. Just a word or two or a number will be fine. And then the other thing I'll do on Friday is I'll reveal what the locations actually are, right? Because these are real cities around the world, and I'll tell you where they are and why, and some of the discrepancies that do exist. All right, so those questions, take a look at the practice for mean and median, and then you have those few questions for each of the climographs, and that is due on Friday. I hope you guys have a good day, and you'll see me later. Bye.